Just recently, I was surfing through various Facebook posts when I came across this that just shows the conspiracy theories about Dr. Fauci are still alive and well and living on Facebook. Dr. Fauci is probably one of the most respected scientists on the planet, unless you are part of the Magite lunatic fringe who just seriously enjoy hating on this man. They refuse to let go of this idea that Dr. Fauci was responsible for creating the coronavirus in a lab in Wuhan, China. And it appears their sole basis for believing this is that, wait for it, because Senator Rand Paul said so. So, of course, it must be true. So I took it upon myself to do a little research into this. And here's what I came up with. This whole Donnybrook stems from an encounter between Dr. Fauci and Dr. Senator Rand Paul. After all, he is a renowned ophthalmologist. This was during a committee hearing on the government's response to COVID-19. So we'll jump to a transcript of that part of the hearing. Okay, so here's the interaction between Senator Paul and Dr. Fauci, which caused all the fuss and headlines because it was so contentious. So we'll get into the arguments Senator Paul is making, which is just that a lab in Wuhan, China, created the coronavirus to infect humans. For example, Senator Paul says here, can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Also, I mentioned here, you see circled Dr. Ralph Baric, which we'll get to that in a minute. Here, Senator Paul mentions the Cambridge Working Group, where he claims that 200 scientists have signed a statement saying it was about gain-of-function research, which is flat out untrue. That just never happened. Where they get this shit, I have no idea. So Senator Paul decides to ramp up the heat by making all sorts of accusations against Dr. Fauci. Do you support sending money? He mentions the EcoHealth, which we will get into, the grants. He also mentions Dr. Baric again and continues his blah, blah, blah grandstanding. And he finishes up his fact-free conspiracy theory rant by saying they have colluded on gain-of-function research where they enhanced the SARS virus to infect human airway cells. They did it by merging a new spike protein on it. This is gain-of-function. This was just research between the Wuhan Institute and Dr. Baric. You can't deny it. And I like this part here where Senator Tina Smith, the committee chair, gets the last word in by calling Senator Paul out on all his bullshit. Thank you, Senator Smith. Okay, so let's just cut to the chase here. This whole debate is about where did COVID come from, or what was the actual cause of COVID. Now, Senator Paul seems to think he is the only one in the world who really cares where COVID came from, how it started. Well, that's just one of many things that Dr. Paul is wrong about. Because it's been pretty obvious to the rest of us that a massive amount of time, work, money, effort has gone into trying to determine exactly what Rand Paul believes he already knows. So now, while it's true that the medical and scientific community may not be 100% certain of how COVID originated, but one thing there is near universal agreement on is where COVID did not come from, and that is a lab in Wuhan funded by the United States. That's where COVID didn't come from. And then to find out how COVID did originate, Senator Rand Paul is the last person whose opinion I would care about. So let's just jump right in here and trash Senator Paul's bogus opinions one by one. The scientific medical journal Nature Medicine is as good a place to start as any. Let's have a look a little further down the article and see what this says. It is improbable that SARS-CoV-2 emerged through laboratory manipulation of a related SARS-CoV-like coronavirus. Okay, now here is Professor Edward Holmes, one of many, I assume, very notable scientists involved in the COVID research and its origins. I want you to note the date here, April 16th, 2020. Remember, the debate between Dr. Fauci and Senator Paul was in November of 2021. So what he had to say was this. There is no evidence that SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19 in humans, originated in a laboratory in Wuhan. Furthermore, the closest known relative to SARS is named blah, 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 which was kept at a virology lab in Wuhan. He goes on to say there is some unfounded speculation that this was the origin of SARS-CoV-2. However, and then he goes on to explain why it was not. Next, we have a statement from the U.S. intelligence community. And again, note that date there, April 30th, 2020. The point being, why are we still arguing about this? This was settled years ago. Reading from the press release, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence today issued the following intelligence community statement. The entire intelligence community has been consistently providing critical support to U.S. policymakers and those responding to the COVID-19 virus, which originated in China. The intelligence community also concurs with the wide scientific consensus that the COVID-19 virus was not man-made or genetically modified. So why are people like Rand Paul still obsessing over this? It's over. It's finished. It wasn't made in a Wuhan lab. So here we have a statement put out by the director of the National Institute of Health. Again, look at that date, way back in May of 2021. Their statement in part reads, however, neither NIH nor NIAID, which is run by Fauci, have ever approved any grant that would have supported gain-of-function research on coronaviruses that would have increased their transmissibility or lethality for humans. So here is Dr. Ralph Baric, the guy who Senator Paul basically just lied about, claiming he was manipulating viruses to infect humans. Dr. Baric addresses these accusations in an article for the MIT Technology Review. Here he unequivocally denies being involved in any kind of research involving viral mutations. He says the Baric Laboratory has never investigated strategies to create superviruses. He says his research has been reviewed by the NIH and by the UNC Institutional Biosafety Committee for potential gain-of-function research, and were deemed not to be gain-of-function. And he emphatically says these recombinant clones and viruses were never sent to China.